The other person's happiness acts like a spotlight illuminating the envious person's dark basement, revealing all the talents they neglected. Envy is the defense of those who prefer to try to put out their neighbor's lamp rather than face the darkness of their own house. Without awareness, the individual spends their life trying to destroy the other's good object, just to avoid feeling the weight of their own existential emptiness. The anatomy of envy, the shadow of Venus, and the emptiness of the soul. The mirror that reveals the shadow. Envy is the symptom of a psyche that has disconnected from its own potential for fulfillment. It is not just a feeling, it is an inverted compass that points exactly to where your inner treasure was buried beneath fear. Hello, and a very warm welcome to Psychology of the Zodiac. I'm Max, and today we begin a deep journey through the darkest layers of the human mind by studying the 7 deadly sins. But, as is tradition on this channel, we won't do this through a moralistic, religious, or punitive lens. Our goal is decoding. We are going to understand envy through symbolic astrology, depth psychology, and practical philosophy. Before we dive in, we need to establish a fundamental premise for this project. The signs of the zodiac are not boxes where we put people. Signs are not static personality labels. They represent archetypal forces, psychological energies, and dynamics that exist within absolutely all of us. Every single human being has the entire zodiacal chart vibrating within their psyche. The birth chart is not what you are, but the mirror of your totality. When we ignore or repress one of these forces, it doesn't disappear, it manifests in the shadow. Envy is essentially one of these forces distorted by a lack of awareness. Throughout this video, you will understand where envy is born in your internal cosmos, how it corrodes your perception of reality, and how philosophy offers the alchemical key to transmute this pain into spiritual evolution. Prepare yourself, because what you are about to see is not just content about someone else, but an invitation for you to look squarely into your own mirror. Part 1. The astrological reading of envy, the axis of possession and the emptiness of Venus. To understand envy in the language of the stars, we need to look at the dynamics of desire, personal worth, and projection. In astrology, envy doesn't belong to a single, isolated sign, but arises from the unresolved tension between certain zodiacal energies that govern our relationship with what we have and what we are. The first nerve center is the Taurus-Scorpio axis. This is the axis of substance and transformation. Taurus represents matter, security, self-worth, and the pleasure of possessing what is tangible. It is the energy that says, I value what I have built. When the psyche fails to develop this Taurian self-sufficiency, it feels empty. And this is where the shadow of Scorpio takes over. Scorpio in its luminous face is the power of regeneration, but in its shadow it becomes control, obsessive jealousy, and covetousness of others' power. A person begins to desire another's resources because they do not trust their own internal capacity to generate value. However, the true engine of envy in the natal chart involves the relationship between the planet Venus and the planet Pluto. Venus rules love, self-esteem, the sense of aesthetics and pleasure. It is the planet that teaches us to attract what we desire. Pluto, on the other hand, rules the depths of the unconscious, obsessions, and the power to destroy in order to rebuild. When Venus and Pluto form tense aspects in the psyche, such as a 90-degree square or an opposition, the individual experiences a chronic sense of scarcity. They feel they will never have enough love, enough beauty, or enough recognition. Let's look at a practical example of this astrological dynamic. Imagine two people in a corporate environment. One of them has an integrated Leo energy. They express their creativity and shine naturally, drawing attention effortlessly. The other person, although possessing the same creative potential, has a severe tension between their Sun, identity, and Saturn, limitation, or between Venus and Pluto. Instead of this second person using the leonine energy that inhabits their own psyche to ignite their brilliance, they project their frustration. When they see their colleague shine, they don't see inspiration. They see a reminder of their own erasure. The internal burning they feel is the energy of Pluto operating in the shadow, trying to destroy another's brilliance because the individual feels incapable of sustaining their own Venusian light. Envy is born when we forget that the entire zodiac is inside us, choosing to hate in another what we are too lazy or afraid to develop in ourselves. Part 2. The psychological reading of envy. Melanie, Klein, and the projection of the shadow. In the field of analytical psychology and psychoanalysis, envy is seen as one of the ego's most archaic and destructive defense mechanisms. It is crucial to differentiate, as the psychologist Melanie Klein did, envy from jealousy. Jealousy is a triangular dynamic. You fear losing something you already possess to a third person. It is a suffering of possession. Envy, however, is dual and much more primitive. It is the feeling of anger and aggression because another person possesses something good, and the envious person would rather spoil that good thing than let the other enjoy it. Psychologically, envy operates through the projection of the shadow, a fundamental concept of Carl Jung. The shadow contains everything we do not accept in ourselves, our repressed desires, our weaknesses, but also our unlived treasures. When the ego lacks the maturity to deal with its own inferiority, it projects this pain outward. The human mind abhors a vacuum and the feeling of being less than. To defend itself against the collapse of self-esteem, the ego creates the illusion that someone else's success is the cause of its suffering. Consider the example of the buried artist, an individual who always had a gift for music, but, due to family pressure or fear of failure, chose a bureaucratic and secure life. He buried his artist in the shadow. Years later, he encounters a friend who makes a living from music and thrives. Upon interacting with this friend, the bureaucrat feels an immediate bitterness. He begins to rationalize. He only made it because he got lucky, or that music isn't even that good. What psychology reveals to us is that the bureaucrat doesn't hate the musician. He hates his own cowardice, which the musician, like a mirror, is reflecting. The other person's happiness acts like a spotlight illuminating the envious person's dark basement, revealing all the talents they neglected. Envy is the defense of those who prefer to try to put out their neighbor's lamp rather than face the darkness of their own house. Without awareness, the individual spends their life trying to destroy the other's good object, just to avoid feeling the weight of their own existential emptiness. Part 3. The philosophical reading and the path of life, from resentment to autarky. Philosophy has always treated envy as the ultimate prison of the soul. Friedrich Nietzsche used the term ressentiment to describe the psychology of the envious man. For Nietzsche, the resentful person is one who is incapable of acting, creating, and affirming their own life. Because they cannot achieve greatness, they invert values. They begin to say that greatness is evil or arrogant, and that their own weakness is a virtue or humility. It is the slave morality born from the negation of the other. On the other hand, Stoicism offers us the practical antidote. Philosophers like Seneca and Epictetus remind us that human suffering comes from placing our energy into what is not under our control. The success, beauty, and assets of others are external indifference. Focusing on them is the fastest path to misery. Philosophy proposes autarky, self-governance. Imagine two athletes in a marathon. The envious runner spends the entire race looking sideways. He watches his competitor's stride, his rival's shoes, the other's breathing. He secretly wishes for the other to stumble. The result is inevitable. By averting his gaze from his own path, he loses his rhythm, trips over his own feet, and falls. The wise runner, focused on internal virtue, knows that the only real race is against himself. If the competitor next to him is faster, it serves only as proof of what is humanly possible, serving as inspiration to improve his own technique. The best path in life requires you to use envy as a diagnostic tool. When the spasm of envy arises, don't blame yourself. Stop and ask yourself philosophically, what does this pain say about my unlived desire? If you feel envious of someone who travels, perhaps your soul is crying out for freedom. If you feel envious of someone who speaks well, your soul is asking for expression. Transmute envy into admiration. Admiration liberates because it recognizes excellence. Envy enslaves because it tries to destroy it. When you take responsibility for your own evolution, someone else's success stops being a threat and becomes a lighthouse, illuminating the possibilities of human potential. Conclusion: the transmutation of lead into gold. We have reached the end of this deep analysis of the anatomy of envy. We have understood that it is born from a tension between desire and a lack of self-worth in our cosmic chart. We saw through psychology that it is the mirror of our repressed shadow, and through philosophy we discovered that the cure lies in regaining control of our own destiny. Awareness is the only key capable of turning the lead of envy into the gold of self-realization. The next time you feel the weight of this sin, remember, the universe is infinite, and the entire zodiac dwells within you. Do not waste your journey looking at the lane next to you. Look inside, adjust your stride, and walk forward. Thank you very much for following this reflection on the psychology of the zodiac. If this content helped illuminate any dark spot on your journey, please subscribe to the channel and share your insights in the comments. In our next meeting, we will descend into an arid terrain of the psyche. We will analyze a sin that disguises itself as tiredness and a lack of meaning, but hides a refusal to bring your own gifts to life. Prepare yourself, because our next video will be about the depths of a seedier spiritual sloth. Until then, and remember, know thyself, and you shall know the universe and the gods.